You know, doors have a lot of connections to world mythology. Going back to the past, dozens of Eguskalor flowers were snipped off their stems, then stapled to people's front doors in hopes that they would ward off evil spirits, which you can find out more about here. Shameless plug. The Angel of Death in Egypt was specifically told not to visit the homes of those who had smeared lamb's blood onto their doorframes, which makes you think how some supposed slaves could own a home, let alone a door, in order to do this, but we'll look over that one for today. Additionally, the Menshen of Chinese mythology are thought to be protectorate spirits of doorways. Again, to drive away evil spirits. Starting to see a pattern here, especially if you feel a certain way about Samael. Perhaps, though, if we look a bit more deeply into things, we'll start to realize that doors really are the key to understanding mythology. I suck at writing scripts. A god of doors may seem animistic. In fact, it's the first example cited to me by my history professor when I first learned of the concept of animism. However, Janus is a bit more involved than merely being representative of doors, and is more properly known as the god of portals. Put a pin in that one for later. To those of you who are not totally familiar with this two-faced god, you'd be forgiven for thinking that he was a comparatively minor deity. However, Janus is actually one of the 20, arguably 19, Dei Selecti, the Roman equivalent to the Olympian pantheon, and has been around in the lore since the beginning of time according to Roman tellings of the creation story. In addition, because the Romans thought of Janus as a gatekeeper between the mortal realm and that of the gods, in order for a human to pray to any particular god, he/she must first make a sacrifice to Janus in hopes that he will open the door just slightly enough so that the god in question would be able to hear their request. Essentially, this means that a single prayer required 2 sacrifices, and Janus was the Roman deity who received the most worship of any god. Though again, this is because he's a gatekeeping dick. There was even a series of commemorative coins released depicting the dual heads of the god, creatively called Janus coins. Aside from having a face which could see the past and future respectively, which calls into question his perception of the present, Janus is famous for 2 things amongst the more casual studier of mythology. 1, he has his own month, Januarius, or as we know it, January, named in his honor, which is actually a pretty big deal as even the chief amongst the gods, Jupiter, never got his own month. Though Janus probably had this granted to him for more symbolic reasons. Again, put a pin in that one for later. And 2, Janus is one of the few Roman gods with no Greek equivalent and is commonly assumed to be a wholly original idea attributed to the Romans. Though there are some fringe minority groups who draw comparisons to the twin-headed dog Orthus and Arcus Panoptus, because in addition to having 100 eyes, he is also supposed to have numerous faces too, though neither of these characters carry the stature nor enough legitimate characteristics to draw an accurate parallel to Janus. So yeah, that means that there are absolutely no other possible cultures from which Janus could be imported and or bastardized. None whatsoever. Oh. Yeah, everybody seems to forget about the Etruscans. So I'd hate to rain on the parade of anyone who thought that Rome finally earned themselves some points for originality, looking at you 7th century BC Roman writers. But Janus is a clear-as-day carbon copy of this Etruscan fellow by the name of Culsans, who is not only the god of doorways with his own series of commemorative coins forged in his likeness, he is also a two-faced god who uses his extra set of eyeballs to watch over the gates he is tasked with defending. Even worse still though, Culsans wasn't even a wholly original idea in of himself, as the Etruscans are thought to have been influenced by the dual-faced messenger god Isimud from Babylonia. Even worser still, it's not like a protectorate god with multiple faces is even really a unique concept. One look at Hinduism and you'd see that the Indians already had the same idea, only taking it to its most logical extreme. So, that's that, right? Case closed. You're all wrong, Messiah is right, yet again. And now you just wasted several minutes of your life watching yet another random mythology video on YouTube? Not quite. You see, ladies and gentlemen, despite the evidence working against them, there are still some smooth brains out there who will swear up and down until they are blue in the face that Janus is still a totally unique god to the Romans, and that all mostly goes back to what I had you all remember at the very beginning of this video. Janus is not the god of doorways as much as he is the god of portals. Now, how do we define portals? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that goes back to Janus's true Greek inspiration: philosophy. Just as one room which is connected to another are separated by a doorway, the Romans believed that various different defined eras are similarly separated by portals. Going back to the Roman variation of the creation story, the reason why Janus was there at the very beginning was to oversee the transfer of the age of complete and total chaos to that of the Greek Genesis, which then transitioned into the Titan Age, which then transitioned into the Olympian Age, and so on and so forth. The concept of portals isn't just limited to time either. Remember those Janus coins we mentioned earlier? The reason he got the limelight on those coins is meant to be symbolic of Janus overseeing the transfer of barbarism to consumer-based civilization. Obviously, you'd want to pay homage to the deity which oversaw this change for the human species, and what better way to do that than to cast his faces onto a coin, just like George Washington, who for the longest time I thought was naked for some reason. I think it was a really long neck and the fact that we don't actually see him wearing any clothes, which again is really weird. Even going back to Janus's month shows the symbolic importance of this god, as January and February are not initially a part of the Roman calendar. It used to be that there were only 10 months out of the year, with it beginning at March and ending in December. Hence why we call it September, as it's the 7th month. October, since it was the 8th, November, since it was the 9th, then so on with a few exceptions here and there. Numa Papilius was thought to have changed that at some point, denoting the new first month of the year to Janus, so that it could be seen as a time of reflection on the previous year with an eye of optimism for what the future year had in store. No doubt a reference to the two faces of Janus supposedly being able to see the past and future respectively, by which goes the logic of Janus defenders. We cannot say that he is so similar to Cole Sans, because to do so would be to water down Janus's character to its most basic components, and by then we'd be comparing the Etruscans' gatekeeping deity to a version of Janus so shallow a white girl might actually be able to go into that pool because it would mean not getting her hair wet. Here's my position on the matter, however. If I were to copy your homework, change the name in the margins, and reworded your responses to sound fancier and more pretentious, can I really claim that I still did all the legwork? We see a lot of this in other mythologies where one character evolves to take on additional aspects as another culture sees fit. Hell, the Greeks did this with Poseidon in the interlude between Mycenaean Greece and classical Greece, where he was once the supreme deity, being the cause of all earthquake. He eventually evolved to become the god of the seas, with his affiliation for earthquakes and horses becoming secondary characteristics. Oh, and he also got shafted by Zeus. And Hades to a much more subtle extent. I think part of this defense of Janus comes from most people thinking that the Roman Republic and Empire were so cool that we absolutely, positively need a testament to the advances that they made with regard to religious evolution in the form of a totally unique OC, which is all their own, completely forgetting the fact that the religious side of Rome was arguably their weakest aspect, as most all of the other members of the Deselecti were plucked from the Greek pantheon. And from there it was a game of synchronize the hell out of my enemy's divine figures, to the point where one of them saw mainstream success, which could have saw Mithraism as the dominant religion of our time, had some carpenter not found himself nailed to one of his own wooden creations. I mean, technically, Jerusalem was under the jurisdiction of Rome at the time of Jesus Christ's birth. So, if you want to say that Rome produced its own holy original deity, you're not technically wrong. I mean, personally, I'd take Jesus over this Toontown looking motherfucker any day. And that's the video for today. Hopefully you all learned something. Go ahead and smash that like button, and subscribe if you haven't already. I know it's annoying to hear content creators beg you guys to do that sort of thing, but YouTube is nothing but a numbers game. Don't hate the player, hate Susan. And also head over to my Patreon, where like these wonderful people over here, you can donate to help out the channel in producing more content just like this. Also, I want to know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below as to whether or not we can truly call Janus a unique deity, or if I hit the nail on the head again. Or you could alternatively say something about how you want to drive a nail into my head. Not like I haven't read that sort of vitriol before. In any case, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you ladies and gentlemen of the internet all have a God's blessed day.